Hello, crafting friends. I'm Dorene Decibus from It Begins with Ink and Paper, and welcome to Fun Fold Friday. Tonight I have a really fun fold that I want to share with you that uses the autumn leaves set. I'm crazy about leaves. I really have to tell you that. And every fall I am just drawn to anything that is fall leaves, anything about fall leaves and anything that I can add some color to. So, as I'm saying, tonight I'm using the autumn leaf set. It's a photopolymer stamp set, which is really nice because you can see through the stamp set and see what you're stamping. I'm actually only going to be using sentiments tonight, and I'll show you the card in just a minute. But it does have this magnificent set of dies that go with it. There are some that do some embossing right into the paper. You have 3 different sentiment, different types of labels you can cut out for the sentiments. You have dies that you can cut out from stamp images that you've stamped, and we also have all of these additional dies, including this one over here, that you can cut out the veins of the leaves, or you can cut out some different sized leaves. And you can see that on all 3 of these, the maple leaf, the oak leaf, and these smaller leaves, there are, maybe they're birch leaves, I'm not sure, there are 2 of each of these dies, so you can cut them out a little faster. And these dies will fit in the mini, most of them, I think even the big one, will fit in the mini stamp embossing machine. I'm also using the Distressed Tile embossing folder. This is a really fun embossing folder. It gives you that distressed look, and we're going to be adding some ink to our embossed image today, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. I'm also going to be using the Deckled Circles dies. These have turned out to be one of my favorite standalone die sets in the mini catalog, and you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 circles. Yes, 14 different circles that you get with this set, and the edges all come out with this deckled texture to it, and so they're pretty cool. So I really like them. Let me just put that one back in its right spot. So these are a great set of dies to have, and you can layer the different circles on top of each other. So we're using that as well. And then for an embellishment, we're going to be using the Neutrals Adhesive Back Sequins. They come in gold, brown, silver, and copper. And we'll be using the copper ones because we are going to be using the copper oxidized paper. And that is so cool. And I'll be showing that in just a minute. So let me put those to the side and put this to the side, and let's look at the card we're going to be making this evening. So I think you can see just from the video, and if I move it around, all of the beautiful copper that this card is going to have. So we are going to be using the copper oxidized paper. It comes in just copper, and it comes in pretty Peacock with the copper on it, and that's the one we're going to be using today. I'm going to be cutting some leaves from it and a piece of background paper. And here is the fun fold inside. So when I open up, you can see that I get 2 triangular shapes. So that's why I'm calling this the triangular fun fold card, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But with these triangular shapes, when you put on the front, if you plan this correctly, you can see the paper that's in underneath. So you have lots of options to what you want to put underneath the card. So it's this, and you can see on the inside I used some of that paper to cut some leaves out. So let's talk about the paper that you need. So I'm just going to change the screen on my computer so I can see all of the measurements. So we're going to start with a piece of crumb cake cardstock, and it measures 5.5 by 11 inches. And I'm going to show you in just a minute where we're going to score that for how we're going to score and cut it. We are also going to need a piece of crumb cake that measures 3 by 4 1/4, and that's this piece right here. I have already embossed it with our distressed embossing folder, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that afterwards. You are also going to need some small scraps to cut the label, and this is what the label looks like when it's been cut. You are also going to need a piece of the pretty Peacock cardstock so that you can cut out the deckled circle. And let me just put that, try to see where we're at. Okay, and then you are going to need a piece of the distressed copper paper that measures 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. And this is just beautiful paper. So you can see the copper, and I'm going to bring it up a little closer so that you can see that there is that pretty peacock with the copper paper. So it's just gorgeous. You're going to need some very vanilla cardstock. And I have a piece that measures the same size as let me just get it all out of my packet, the same size as this piece, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute we need it the same size. And then we're going to need a piece to go on the inside, and it measures 5 1/4 by 3 3/4, and that's going to go in the inside of our card. And then what I did is I just cut out a bunch of stuff. So I did cut out the veins in Pretty Peacock, and I cut out one of the maple leaves in the copper. I also cut out the oak leaf, and I put a vein on it already, and I cut out another oak leaf vein. And then you can see I just cut out a bunch of the smaller flowers. I didn't know, I'll put these in my stamp set in an envelope, like I have here, a clear envelope, and I will use these as we go along, but while I was cutting some, I just cut a bunch. And I know, if you'll remember, on the inside of the card, I did use one of the smaller oak leaves and one of the smaller leaves that I think might be representing a birch leaf. So I'm going to pull 2 of those aside to go here. I'm going to keep out the veins to go on the large leaf, but I just wanted to show you so you could see the different sizes of leaves it cuts out, so you can get an idea of that. And everything is cut out with using the copper oxidized paper. So I'm going to put all of these back in my envelope so I can store them safely and use them on other projects. There we go. So we'll just need those here. Okay, so I am going to get out my scoreboard. And we're going to start with scoring the, there we go, with the 5 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. So we're going to score this at 3 1/2 and at 7. So that's where this, 3 1/2 and it's 7 1/2, I think. That's okay. I wasn't on the right page. So it is cut 3 1/2 and 7 1/2. Sorry about that. I'm going to fix this. It's not going to matter. It's just going to be on our back. So it's 3 1/2 and 7 1/2. And then I am going to be cutting the triangle. So I am going to just make a little score mark at 2 3/4 of an inch on both ends, because 2 3/4 is half of 5 1/2. So that's just going to give me my mark there. Let's put that away. and we're going to bring out my paper cutter. And I'm going to cut off those triangles. So what I'm going to do is I am going to match these score lines. So I want this one here and the mark that I made at 2 3/4. So I'm going to line those right up on where the blade will go. And I am going to trim off one triangle, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other triangle. So line them both up and then cut that piece off. And I can save these triangles for another project as well. So there's my first one. My second one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to, so it's, remember, this part is going to go right here in between those two score lines. And so it's this line here. I want this score line that I'm going to line up with both score lines, the 2 3/4 inch line and these other lines to make the card. So there's another triangle cut. And then we'll do the same thing for this. So you've got some special cutting and scoring to do. So remember the scoring, and you don't need to write this down right now because I will be putting it in the comments afterwards. But the score lines are 3.5 and 7.5. So I'm going to fold these in, and I'm going to use my bone folder to give it a nice crease. Remember, anytime you are doing a fun fold, you want to give those crease lines a really nice, there we go, you want to give those crease lines a really nice crease. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to center this right inside the card. So this is the basic fold right here, and you get that triangle fold. I like to put the left side over and then open it like a book. You could do it either way, but that's how I do it. So I'm going to add some adhesive to this, and then I'm going to put it inside the card and try to have it centered and have the top and the bottom centered as well, so on all sides. So there we go with that. Now, this piece of oxidized copper is going to be used to create the flap that's going to be opened. And because it is just designer series paper, I am going to add it to a piece of very vanilla cardstock to give it a little bit more sturdiness, so that when it's used over and over again to open the card, it will not be, bent or ruined when someone is opening the card. Get that little bit off. So I'm just going to line these up again and just press down that. Now, when I put this on the front of the card, I only want it to, I want it centered. So I want it centered between the top and the bottom and the sides. And I am going to want to have adhesive just on this triangle. So I am going to add it so it doesn't go out too far. And I am going to load it up with adhesive so that the front of the card is not going to fall off. So when I put this down, I am going to make sure I am centering it from top to bottom and side to side. And now when I adhere it, it's going to open up and it's going to have the triangle right in the middle of that piece. So that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so now let's, we're going to start decorating the card and do some stamping. So the first thing I'm going to do with the pretty Peacock ink is I'm going to take my sponge, and it fell on the floor, so let me just grab it. I knocked it off my desk. I'm just going to take a piece of a sponge, and I am going to pick up some ink from my ink pad, and I am going to just roll, kind of in a circular motion. I am going to add the ink so that just the embossed images on this are picking up the ink. I don't want to add a tremendous amount of pressure because I really only want the embossed pieces to pick up the ink. So the pieces that aren't embossed, the ones that are more distressed, I still want them to. So I want it to be kind of uneven like it is here, because that's what makes it look distressed. So that is what's going to go on the front of that piece of oxidized copper paper. So let me add some adhesive to that. It's just a fun way to enhance this paper. And then the other thing you can think about with it is that there are other ways you can do this. You can also add ink directly to the embossing folder and put it through the embossing machine. But I like sometimes just adding that softness of color onto the embossed image. Now, next I'm going to add this deckled circle onto the front of my crumb cake cardstock that's been embossed, and I'm just going to add that with some Stampin' Seal. So it's going to just be centered on that piece. Okay, that part is done. Now let's work on the leaves. So this leaf, I'm going to be adding this piece to it. There's several ways that I could do that. I could pick up with another side of my sponge, or even the piece with the ink. I could pick up some of my glue and just dab it, put it on a silicone mat and just dab it on. Or I can use my mono liquid glue directly onto this. So what I'm going to do is just put some little dots. I don't need to have a dot of glue everywhere, but I want to make sure I get enough so that it's going to stay on the leaf. So I'm kind of putting a little piece out on each of the different veins as they move out, so it's all going to stick. But again, I don't need a lot. And I'm going to hold on to the end of it, and I'm going to line it up with my leaf. So once I line it up, I can press down, and it's going to adhere. There we go. And you'll notice it has a little bit of a stem that's coming off of it. So I am going to take my snips. I just had them. How many of you does this happen, that you know they're right in front of you somewhere, but you can't actually see them? And that is happening to me right now. So I am just going to take another pair of scissors. Let's see what I've got in here. Since my snips have started hiding on me, and I'm just going to go in and cut the rest of this stem off so it doesn't. There we go. So the leaf is ready to go on to the front of our card. So I am going to add some adhesive, and then you know, you're able to decide which direction you want it to go in. I am going to put it a little bit towards my right, and I'm going to have it coming up towards the top of the circle. I want to leave room to put my greeting along the bottom here. So now let's go inside and add these two leaves like I did in the first card. I'm just going to put a little adhesive on the back of the leaf, and I want to go high enough on here that when this closes, you're not going to see the leaves on the bottom. So I'm not going directly on the bottom corner of the card. So I'm going just a little higher. So I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the small leaf and add that to this part here. There we go. So we have a nice little, we don't want to leave the inside unattached, but we can't see the inside, so it'll be a nice surprise when someone opens up the card. Okay, so now let's do our stamping. Like I said, there's not much stamping on this card. We are going to be stamping on the label, I'm thankful. So I'm going to start with that first, and I'm going to be using the Pretty Peacock ink. So I'm going to put this towards the top. I love that with the photopolymer stamps that you can see exactly where you're putting it. And then I have a smaller one that says, I'm thankful to have you as a friend. And I'm going to be putting that underneath. So I have that all stamped up. And I'm going to just bring this down a little bit. And I'm going to put that right here. There we go. I'm thankful to have you as a friend. Okay, now we just have to finish up. I'm going to take some dimensionals, and I am going to put them on the back of the label. And on this label, I kind of alternate them. I put 4. I don't want them to get, you know, if I put this in an envelope, I don't want it to get crushed. So I put on enough to cover both sides. And get these backings off. And I am going to put this right along, so I want some of the circle to show through, so I'm going to put it up like that. So we've got the leaf, we've got the label, and then I'm going to take my sequins out. Remember, these are the neutral adhesive sequins, and let me just get my pick tool, and I'm going to start with a larger one, and I'm going to put the larger one right on my label right here. So there we go. And I'm going to take 2 smaller ones, and I am going to put one over here, and I am going to take and put another one over here. So we've got a nice triangle here. And that is it for tonight's card. What a fun fold. So again, it opens up, forms those 2 triangles, gives you the really beautiful front where you can see the inside paper, and using this oxidized copper paper just makes it so dramatic and beautiful. So that is it for tonight's Fun Fold Friday. I hope you join me on Sunday night at 7 for Simply Stamping Sunday. We're actually using this same stamp set for our last project of the month. We've been using this stamp set all month long, so I thought it would be great to add this card that I am sharing with you tonight, just to have another one in your arsenal. So please feel free to join me Sunday night at 7 for that. And if you can't, I will see you next Friday night at 6 o'clock again for Fun Fold Friday. Remember to like my page, leave me a comment, say hello, tell me where you're from, and if you also want to check out my YouTube channel, it has all of my lives, and I'm going to be adding some other videos as time passes on to that, and that channel is called It Begins with Ink and Paper, and I'd appreciate it if you liked my channel as well and subscribe to it. So that's it for me tonight. Have a great weekend, a great week, and I'll see you either Sunday night at 7 for Simply Stamping Sunday, or Friday night at 6 for Fun Fold Friday, or hopefully for both. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.